This episode of the Justin Robert Young podcast is brought to you by The Contender. The Contender is the game of presidential debate available right now at thecontender.us. Head on over there. Go ahead and buy it. The webpage will go down, but it won't because you can just refresh it. Look, it's just so simple. Buy it on Amazon. Buy it on our site. Doesn't matter. Make sure that you bring home the game everybody is talking about to your home. All sorts of cards, 500 in the base deck. You're not going to be able to stop playing it. In fact, one day, you might die playing it. In that case, don't say I didn't warn you. But buy it anyway, even though it might herald your death. Thecontender.us. And by Patreon. Patreon.com/JuRY is where you support not only this program, but also my one mic politics podcast called Politics, Politics, Politics. Thank you to everybody. This is our last show of the year, and what a year it has been. We have absolutely transformed this program and my life. Thank you guys so much. Because of Patreon, I was able to quit my job and bring you this heat, the likes of which you have never seen on a full-time basis. Thanks again. Patreon.com/JuRY. Now, let's start the show. Boodly, 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 doo, 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 doo. Welcome. Man, I'll tell you what, my circuits are fried. We had the holidays, all right? So let me lay this out here like a platter for you. There's this thing called Christmas, right? You heard it? God damn it, if this thing don't come around once a year and just throw your whole fucking life in a tizzy like it was some sort of cyclone. Next thing you know, I'm out here doing an 8-hour live stream with my missus on Twitch, like you do, cooking vegan food and talking to people, asking them to follow because it's free. Twitch.tv/fakegamergirl. You know, typical holiday shit. But meanwhile, while that's about to happen, both me and her wind up getting sick. So we have to go ahead and medicate ourselves, and not in the the way heroin addicts justify using medicate yourself, but rather like with Sudafed and Dayquil and NyQuil. We're not very good patients either. You know, both of us want to, I want to tough it out and not take anything. She's just the most stubborn person. I had to downright, kneecap her to get her to take NyQuil last night so she could actually get some sleep. So then at the end of all that, this big extended, holiday situation, we come here to the JuRY podcast. Now, this ain't about me complaining about having to do the JuRY podcast because it's a labor of love. Absolutely. This is barely even work. This is literally just me coming to the old watering hole with you, my friends here on the internet, nay, my family, and shooting the breeze. But I'm going to lie to you if I'm telling you that I'm operating at 100%. Also, I forgot how much Sudafed knocks me on my ass. Holy smokes. There's a reason why people just boil that stuff up and sell it as crystal meth. I totally understand now. Breaking Bad has been brought into a whole new dimension for me, because that stuff will get you that will get you toasted. I'm like in the fog right now. What I'm saying is I'd like to start doing crystal meth. So if anybody has any crystal meth, just go ahead and send it to our P.O. Box. Welcome, 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 everybody, to the Justin Robert Young Show. This is where I talk about whatever the hell I want to talk about, and I'm going to take not one, but 2 segments to talk about something that's been getting all up in my craw for the last couple days. It is about Star Wars? Star Wars. Yeah. Not Trek, Star Wars. I was trying to remember, he said facetiously. So the Star Wars The Force Awakens, I've seen it 3 times. I think the movie's really good. This isn't going to be about spoilers. This isn't going to be about the movie. This is going to be about the reaction to the movie, because at my heart, I am a journalist, classically trained at the S.I. Newhouse School of Public Communications in Syracuse University. And if there is one tried and true journalist tradition, it is bitching about other journalists. Yes, it is the navel-gazing circle jerkapalooza that completely turns regular people off to the media. However, in this modern blogging culture, it is the lifeblood. See, one person has an opinion, which begets another opinion, which begets the reaction to the second opinion, which begets the reaction to the reaction, which begets the reaction to the reaction to the reaction to the reaction, which is where we find ourselves right now. Because at some point, somebody saw The Force Awakens, and they said they liked it. And then somebody else saw that one person liked it, and they said, you don't know what you're talking about. You can't have liked it because it wasn't good. And then there's another person who says, wait a minute, you have made a faulty assumption to say that person doesn't know what they're talking about because you, sir, don't know what you're talking about. That first person liked it and he's okay to like it, but you are not okay to say that the other person didn't like it. And then I come in, just screaming in from the back, pushing open the curtains. The music starts playing. I hear voices in my head, and I'm slamming down on the mat like the Viper Randy Orton. And this is what you will hear for the next 2 segments: an RKO of hot takery from out of nowhere. Because I got a problem, folks. I got a problem with other people's problems. You down with OPP? Yeah, you know me. Here's my problem. This ain't going to be spoilers. Here's the only spoiler, all right? So you can determine whether or not I'm going to catch poop for this. It's up to you. I'm going to criticize the criticism of The Force Awakens, specifically that it is too much like A New Hope. That Episode 7 mocks, in key plot and tone points, A New Hope. So, let's get into it. Now, let me start off by saying that I don't necessarily have a problem with people pointing out these very obvious and glaring similarities, nor do I deny that they exist. In fact, I would say that in terms of the flow of the movie, as well as very glaring beat-you-over-the-head callbacks, there are a tremendous amount of similarities between The Force Awakens and A New Hope. And if you would like to put them in a list so you feel clever about yourself, that's fine. You're allowed to do that. It's a free internet. What I want to talk about and explore is where we kind of stop short with these. Because very often what I find this criticism to be is just a big hooray for me certificate laminated, put up with 2 happy face magnets on your refrigerator. It's people saying, hey, look what I noticed. Notice me because I notice things. Without necessarily thinking why it happened. Or, here's something I definitely disagree with, the idea that this is a fault of J.J. Abrams or Lawrence Kasdan, the writer writers and director specifically. And let's just take a look at J.J. Abrams, okay? This is J.J. Abrams coming in to The Force Awakens. Disney buys Lucasfilm. Lucasfilm had steadfastly refused. And in the amazing Half in the Bag, please, everybody, stop watching this and go watch Half in the Bag, their review of The Force Awakens. It's really, really great. It's really fun to watch them. They have really good insights. They're obviously hilariously punchy because they had to go see a 1 o'clock showing of The Force Awakens, and they recorded their review at 4 o'clock in the morning. But even then, they're unable to let go of the fact that they need to make fun of George Lucas. And in making fun of George Lucas, they keep bringing back a 60 Minutes interview that happened right after what I assume to be Revenge of the Sith, in which the interviewer asks George Lucas, will there ever be an episode 7? What if somebody else came to you and said, I would like to do episode 7? Will that happen? And he says flat out, no, never. And then later goes on to say, they play another clip that says episode 7 will never happen. Well, considering recent events, I would have nothing else to say but booyah to that one element of George Lucas's decision-making. However, Lucasfilm gets sold to Disney. They announced there was going to be episode 7, 8, and 9. The search is on for a director. Enter J.J. Abrams. J.J. Abrams has made the following movies: Mission Impossible 3, Star Trek, Super 8, Star Trek 2. 4 films. His least critically accepted is Mission Impossible 3. And even then, it's in the high 70s. In fact, J.J. Abrams' Rotten Tomatoes rating is pretty sterling. He's never really made, again, his lowest is in the 70s, the high 70s. Pretty sweet for a batting average. But yet, his harshest criticism comes from his most recent 2 movies before The Force Awakens, and that is Super 8 and Star Trek Into Darkness. It is there where he begins to get the reputation is one of somebody who favors big action over plot, who very often has scripts that take unnecessary plot cheats, and is too obsessed with nostalgia. Super 8, effectively, for somebody who really didn't want to do a sequel, that's why he did Super 8, he wanted to do something original, is overly referential to Spielberg. It is just like needing to the point where it distracts from the film. It's stylistic apings of Spielberg, who also worked on the film. So now, and this is something that J.J. Abrams has said in interviews, that he knew that there were major script issues with both of those movies, that he wishes he had spent more time on those scripts before he started shooting them. J.J. Abrams agrees to take on Star Wars, and immediately his first fight is we got to move it back. It can't be in May. It's got to be in December. Whatever you need to do, that's got to happen. Because the script that you have given me is in disrepair. And I don't want to have happen to me what happened to Star Trek Into Darkness. So pull back from JJ for a second. At the time that The Force Awakens was released, there's one spinoff in active production. There is a sequel to his movie that is being prepped to shoot within the month. And there is, within a month's time rather, not the month. And at least 3 other spinoffs either announced, casted, or in pre-production. So what does that mean? That means that The Force Awakens not only has the inimitable task of following up Star Wars, not only has the task of wiping away the memories of the prequels, because again, the last person who tried to bring the world new Star Wars, was rewarded with the brand of childhood rapist. The phrase George Lucas raped my childhood is something that autocorrects on Google. That's the last dude who dared to say, hey dog, you like Star Wars? Here's some Star Wars. They weren't good, and we excoriated him for it. So this is not just a walk in the park. This isn't just a movie. One does not simply walk into the Death Star. Also, by the way, because we've announced all these other things, please launch a universe. Yeah, no. We want you to launch an entire universe because there's 2 movies. One's about to shoot. The sequel to your movie's about to shoot. Also, if this movie isn't good, then people probably aren't going to want to go see the other spin-offs. No pressure. They relent to JJ to say, okay, fine, you can have the extra time. You've got a script that, based on interviews with Michael Arndt, J.J. Abrams, and Lawrence Kasdan, was having massive problems because it was crushing under the weight of the old characters. They've got to figure out a way that they can weave in old characters and not have them completely dominate the movie. Not have you want to say, hey, new character, please leave. You're not Star Wars. Luke Skywalker's Star Wars. Han Solo's Star Wars. Leia is Star Wars. Please, no, you're new. Can you leave? Can you go? We want to spend time with our old friends. We don't care how old they are. So JJ has some decisions to make. How do I make a movie that is simultaneously fresh, that is simultaneously going to please those who are there for the nostalgia bump? And how am I going to personally make a movie that doesn't fall into the same traps that I fell into with my last couple movies? Because if you look at that kind of trajectory with those kind of directors, he did 2 movies that were kind of critically, like there was the bad reviews were really bad. Normally, it's the next movie after those that the mass of critics jump on. If it's got flaws, they will smell blood and they will descend en masse, the critics will. That's Star Wars. So he's got to bring what he does without falling into the same traps that he's fallen in, when one of his traps is being a derivative nostalgia hound and deliver nostalgia while also setting up new characters. So what does he do? He goes, finds the one person that can write a Star Wars script like no one else. It's Lawrence Kasdan. He writes a script that gives you original characters with familiar beats and quite a few slam you over the head references. He effectively takes the same structure of A New Hope and layers in new fun elements to it. He instead decides, well, we'll take a very familiar structure, we'll have a very familiar third act goal, but what we'll spend all of our original capital on are characters. Let's invent very fun, likable, new characters that go on space adventures. And what's the result? What's the result? The result is that this movie will be the only movie in cinema history to make $1 billion in the United States. That's what. So for anybody who wants to jump up and down and scream, it took me out of the picture when I noticed all these similarities between the other movies. Number one, it doesn't matter because the audiences love it. And just because you noticed it doesn't mean that other people did. And it might have brought you out of it. And maybe you feel very compelled to write about it. But I'm just going to come to you as a friend. I'm going to explain to you why you don't want to be that guy. And I'll do it right after this. Here's why you don't want to be that guy. You don't want to be that guy because there's been many, many, many that guys. In movie history, there are plenty of people who out and out steal, and not from movies that they are supposed to be sequels to. No. From different, completely separate films. That criticism doesn't age well. And I'll give you an example. Because if you fall into this category of the person who needs to point out that there are similarities to a film, this is all I hear.
I'd like to welcome all you ignorant ass bitches, critics, complainers, disgruntled rappers, and racists especially, to the 9th annual International Player Haters Ball. Oh man, hate.
The Player Haters Ball. This is a ball as old as the internet itself. Yes! As Kevin Smith once told us, the internet is for two things: porn and complaining about movies. And there is a rich, rich history, a boneyard, a fossil fine to confound the ages of people bitching about form and structure in movies and how well they fit to other films. Let's go ahead and take a look at who do you think you're fooling? Who do you think you're fooling? Now, that's a name that many of you might know. Many of you. If you're a cinemaphile, if you are somebody that has, read about movies on the internet for a while, that might strike some memories for you. Who do you think you're fooling? Who do you think you're fooling was a movie, little independent movie, meant to embarrass Quentin Tarantino. Why? Because the plot of Reservoir Dogs is very, very similar to a film called A City on Fire. Quentin Tarantino has been unapologetic in the fact that he has stolen, he says it's not an homage, he has stolen from many films, and he constantly does it. There are elements of Kill Bill, Pulp Fiction, Reservoir Dogs that he has taken from other movies and repurposed for his final product. It is there that he says the art lies in the remix. But before Quentin Tarantino was somebody that we consider a legend with a microphone, he was just a filmmaker, somebody to be criticized heartily on the internet. And so, it is this 10-minute film which goes into painstaking detail, pointing out all the ways that almost to a letter, the characters and plot of Reservoir Dogs are like A City on Fire comes to be. It got quite a bit of attention at the time, and certainly was something for film school nerds to J.O. about. But what does it do now? And did it affect Quentin Tarantino at all? No. Reservoir Dogs is still thought to be among his strongest works and one of the biggest debuts for an independent cinema creator ever. It made Quentin Tarantino, put him on the map, and Pulp Fiction, his next film, really cemented his legendary status. So if you are Mike White, I assume not the screenwriter Mike White, but the guy who made this Who Do You Think You're Fooling? Do you think that this is something that you're proud of? Maybe. Took a lot of work and you certainly found all these similarities. But does the criticism age well? Does it make him seem like a more informed critic? Does it seem like something that adds to the art of criticism, that brings you a further understanding or deconstruction of a work of art? Or is it just somebody pointing at things and saying, look at me, I found things? I think it's the latter. And if you are somebody who is compelled to do this about Star Wars Episode 7, my only warning is that at the end of the day, when this movie is the highest grossing film of all time and everyone around you loves it, it will bring you no joy to point out the fact that there are character beats that were also in other movies. It will not make you seem smarter to point out that there are character beats that were in the other movies, or plot beats that were in the other movies, or that they went to a cantina like they did in The Force Awakens, or that there was a desert scene where Droid had secret plans that they needed to get off. No. It will not make you seem smart. It will really just reinforce what I feel completely sums up this argument. Because Star Wars, the franchise, is McDonald's. And The Force Awakens is Chipotle. And so to point out, hey, they use the same formula to make something else that everyone loves, it only makes me think of this Todd Barry line. And I will leave you with this, and then we will get back to our regularly scheduled program on the JuRY Show.
It's the world's greatest restaurant chain, taking a stab at another kind of food and hitting it out of the park.
People are now saying that was on the AV Club like 2 weeks ago. Which is amazing. And then stop criticizing me for stealing from the AV Club. Huh? What did I just go over? It doesn't matter. I stole from the AV Club. I didn't know the AV Club wrote about it, but it's really, really funny if they did. All right. Here's some non-Star Wars stuff that I'm going to talk about. The Contender. Also, Simpsons did it, says Great Sword. The Contender. Ash, can you bring me the Contender from the kitchen? It's out right now. It's a card game that I made with John Teasdale, Guts and Glory. Here we go. We have it displayed here for the video viewers right next to me with the lovely hand model, Ashley Paramore. Okay. So there is a part of creating things that is fun. There's a part of creating things that's not fun at all and is really nerve-wracking and it makes you want to just start crying. That is the pressure of making the rubber meet the road. And maybe it's because of this Contender stuff that I'm a little sensitive or very attuned to the creator's perspective. And I want to jump to J.J. Abrams and Lawrence Kasdan's defense. Not that they need it in any way. Because right now, I am realizing that this, my largest commercial push for a product that I've ever done in my life, is a lot different of a journey than just putting out an album or putting out a podcast. That as the stakes get higher, and the stakes are pretty high for us. We raised over $140,000, and we've spent more than that to get this out to people. We are betting very heavily on ourselves that the critical reaction to it is that much more nerve-wracking. That as the stakes get higher, my patience and emotions get thinner when the rubber meets the road, when people start actually playing with it. So I want to take this time right now to thank literally everybody who listens to this show that went out and bought the Contender. You don't have to stand there if you want. Yeah, no, you could. I just wanted. Yeah, there we go. Put it in the T-Rex's teeth. There's just, so thank you to everybody who bought it. Thank you to everybody who got it over Christmas, the Christmas holiday, that went out with their families, played it with their friends, and tweeted about it, wrote about it, put it on Facebook. Thank you so much. Thank you. If you would like to follow at Contender Game, that would be amazing. If you would like to follow, I believe it is facebook.com/The Contender Game is the official Facebook page. Go ahead on over there and like it right now. We're posting some of the most amazing pictures and videos that everybody has sent in so far. The reaction has been great, and it has been just amazing to watch, and you have no idea how much it is the salve for a ragged soul to watch people enjoy the product and not have people just yawn and say, thanks, but this is boring. But here has been the element of this process that has literally driven me up a wall. It is watching the reviews on Amazon. Now, let me set up this situation here for you. People buy card games in one of two places. Here's the first, Kickstarter. People love looking at Kickstarter to buy new games. Here's how much we in this internet sphere are in need of a great centralized board game and card game website. People go to Kickstarter because that is where they can find new and interesting content, and they are willing to pay a premium, wait months to get their product, and possibly never get it at all. We love card games and board games so much that we are willing to put those conditions on our happiness just so we can get the new. Second place is Amazon, and Amazon sells a whole lot more of it, but you have to contend with every board game and card game ever released. You are now just not only going against stuff that is up there right now, currently funding on Kickstarter, you are battling against Monopoly and Uno. So the Amazon reviews are very important. If we were a card game called JuRY's Slap Chop Dickplex, it would be very important because you need to show that the game is worth playing. That's the way that people know that there are, that's why people buy games. I mean, like, our Kickstarter got funded so much because other people were doing it. But if it had that crazy name, it would be important. Because we're named the Contender, it's mega important. There is a graphic novel named The Contender. There is a movie named The Contender. There is a biography of Andrew Cuomo named The Contender. So when you type in The Contender in Amazon, we are buried like 5 or 6 results down. How do we fix that? We have to show that there is engagement on the product, and people have to buy the product. And if people do both those, we will move up the search results. So pardon me if I look a bit shell-shocked before you right now, for all of you watching on YouTube. At this point, everybody on YouTube, please leave a comment saying, "No, Justin, you look great." Because watching these Amazon Contender reviews has been like playing Russian roulette. Oh, man. Every time a new one comes in, it is just click, 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 click. Now, thankfully, I'm clicking, right? I'm hitting empty barrel after empty barrel after empty barrel because it has been amazing what you guys have done. You guys have written so many very, very flattering, super rad 5-star reviews. It is just insane. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. If you have not written one and you have the game, we are not asking for you to review it. If you have not played it, please don't. But if you have the game and you've played it, you have a feeling about it, reviewing does a lot for us. But this weekend, I got our first 2-star review. Our first 2-star review. Now, should I read it? I don't know if I should read it. Should I read it? I don't know if I should read it. Oh, I should read it. No, you shouldn't. Because I don't want to embarrass the guy. You can look it up if you want. This isn't like, hey, F that guy. He's entitled to his opinion. And to be perfectly honest, it's not even that bad of a review. He said the game was boring because it was like Cards Against Humanity, which he hates. Which if you hate Cards Against Humanity, you know, it's like, you know, he says that we're a ripoff of Cards Against Humanity, which, I mean, Cards Against Humanity took the mechanics from apples to apples. And again, apples to apples is McDonald's. Cards Against Humanity is Chipotle. It's the most successful franchise of all time, trying a different kind of game and knocking it out of the park. We have worked very, very hard to make our mechanics different. So it's not that I think that the review is wrong. It's not that I want to challenge the review. It's just when I see that review, whether or not it's appropriate, whether or not it's correct, whether or not any part of it, right? All I can see is, well, maybe this game isn't what I thought it was. Maybe people aren't going to like it. Maybe everybody who's reviewed it is just my friends. Maybe, you know, this is just a foolhardy thing. Maybe we went in too deep. Maybe we should have just cashed out, filled all the orders we could on cheaper paper stock, and everybody took $5,000 home and just sat on it. Maybe that's what we should have done. Maybe we shouldn't have doubled down. Maybe we shouldn't have made the politically incorrect deck. Maybe we shouldn't have put the time and effort and quality into making sure that this was something that we were all proud of because we believed that this could be a really, really, really fun game. Now, I know that's irrational. I know that that's not what you should do, right? And truth be told, if this was any other kind of show, if I were anybody else, if I weren't on this show to reveal myself to be a raw nerve, because I asked that of you guys as an audience to be shown back at me during the feedback section, then I would not let you guys in on this. Because it's kind of embarrassing to be shaken so much by something so trivial. And yet, there I am, looking at a 2-star review and saying, 99.999% chance this is just a guy who was upset about something else, doesn't like these kind of games, feels that, maybe we're paying for reviews, wants to do his civil duty as somebody who cares about the sanctity of Amazon reviews. We will guard these reviews because this star count is a sacred star count. Maybe that's what he thinks. But maybe he's the forebearer. Maybe he's the Silver Surfer to the Galactus of failure, which might come. Now, if I'm going to pull back for a second and look at my mental frailty, I will say, yeah, it's ridiculous. Yes, I'm overreacting 150%. But this is a very important edge for me. I feel like all creators kind of need to have that element. You need to find the validity in your haters' arguments so you can dissect them and find out what is constructive and what isn't. There's not a whole lot constructive in that. But I'm still kind of going crazy about it. We'll be right back with your emails right after this. Ashley suggested that I just live by this timeless mantra.
I was too busy blocking out the haters.
Fair point. You can email the show, justinrobertyoung@gmail.com. That is justinrobertyoung@gmail.com. All right. Real quick disclaimer. I've got so many X gon' give it to yous. For whatever reason, X gon' give it to you has been the most explosive by word count alone topic that we've had on this show ever. So I'm having a hard time figuring out how to fit them into the show because they're great stories. People have been emailing their how they're still hung up on their exes stories like crazy, but all of them are like 9,000 words long. So I think I'm just going to have to do a separate special JuRY podcast where I purge a bunch of them. But this is hereby a fair warning that if you want your ex gon' give it to you emails read on the show, you gotta keep them short, man. I need capsules. I need greatest hits because they're great and they're very, very, very well written, right? They're really well done. But I can't read 10,000 word emails. And I know that there's a lot of subtlety and complexity and issues and stuff. I get it. And I don't want to cheapen what is truly a very important emotional story of your life. However, come on, man. I can only read so much, man. And I don't want to just read a portion of it. I don't want to butcher it. I don't want to take one little thing that I don't think is a big deal, but you think is a big deal. And maybe it's raw. And then you don't like, oh, I don't know. I didn't mean to come off like that. Yada, yada, yada. Please, I'm going to do one X gon' give it to you special, and then anything else that y'all send to the show, just go ahead, try to keep it as pithy as possible. Now let's talk about child pornography. Anonymous Diamond says, 3 weeks ago, I got a call from my uncle telling me that my dad was arrested. My dad is retired and now living in Florida with his new wife. The next sentence out of my uncle's mouth was he was arrested for child pornography. Now, this comes as somewhat of a shock to me because he was always a good father and grandfather. In the 3 weeks since the phone call, I have learned something very disturbing. We are talking Jared from Subway level shit. Part of me wants to support him because he's my dad, but I don't know how or if I can. Part of me wants to write him off, figuring I'll never see him again anyway, as he will most likely be locked away in federal prison for an unforeseeable amount of time. He is scheduled to call this Christmas weekend, and I will talk to him for the first time. We can't discuss anything about his situation because it hasn't gone to trial, but it weirds me out to think that he'll be calling from prison to talk with his kids and grandkids, and I have no clue how or when I will let my young kids know that Grandpa is locked away for vile and disgusting things. So, do I keep him or let him drop? P.S. I'm not worried that anything happened with my kids, as I've always been around since his visits were usually around the holidays due to travel from Florida. Not that I can or sure justify my kids, quote unquote, versus someone else's, but somehow it makes it a little bit easier for me to think about. Thanks for being my free shrink and sounding board. Oh, and I won't be offended if any jokes are made. It's nothing that I haven't thought of myself, Diamond. Okay. I don't know. I don't know if you were expecting my tight 5 on child pornography, but I don't really have a ton of jokes here. Let's boil this down. First things first, obey your thirst, Sprite. All right. Second thing, this ain't your fault. Your dad is not who you thought he was. There is a troubling, sinister, terrible element to him. But the biggest thing is just to understand, wall off for yourself your culpability. And by the way, that also extends to whether or not you want to talk to him on Christmas. Now, this is being recorded after the Christmas holiday, so I assume that you have already made whatever decision that you were going to make. But going forward, you don't owe him anything. I've talked a lot on this show about toxic relationships, parental, familial. It's a two-way street. Either your dad wants to keep a relationship with you, at which point you dictate the terms, which, considering where he's come from, you have a right to. And that also includes whether or not you want to talk to him at all right now. Maybe your ruling is, dude, I can't even right now. On a scale from 1 to even, I just can't right now. That's your right. You have an ability to do that. And you don't owe him shit at all. Nothing. Now, whether or not you want to be there for him during this, while he's in prison, that's up to you. And I suspect that his behavior from here on will inform that decision. And I hope it does. But just know this. You are not crazy to think, I just don't want him in my life right now. Now, on to whether or not how you're going to tell your kids. Whether or not you're going to tell your kids, how you're going to tell your kids. I can't imagine where you're coming from on this, because this is some heinous stuff. I don't have kids. I've never been in a situation anywhere close to this kind of magnitude. But I will say one thing. When I was 8 years old, my brother was 5, my dad beat up my mom. Pretty bad. It was really the last inciting incident that led to their divorce. She got bruises all over her arms and stuff, and we had left the house to go sleep in a hotel that night. And, again, I'm 8, my brother's 5. She took the time to show us her bruises and explain that Dad beat the shit out of Mom. Now, she was even then protective of our ability to feel however we wanted to feel about my dad, which just shows you what a goddamn saint my mom is. There wasn't any dude, fuck that guy. You think he's nice? Guess what? He beat the shit out of your mom. Psych. He sucks. She didn't say that. She said, listen, your dad did this. Doesn't mean you gotta hate him. Doesn't mean anything. Just means that this happened. And that's why we're leaving, because I was afraid for my safety and yours. Now, I didn't really understand it at the time, and it really took me years and years to process it. But it was something that I appreciated as I got older. And it didn't warp me. It didn't make some element of my childhood ruined or grayed out. And it really didn't even affect my relationship with my dad, ultimately. All the elements of my relationship with my dad that led to me not talking to him anymore came after. But it did affect my relationship with my mom. It set up a relationship of trust, even if the truth is very, very, very hard to say. So I would say to you, no matter what, I know this is not the same situation, but I will say this, and I don't got kids, man. I got birds, and, they don't give a shit if you tell them anything. Kids love honesty, because ultimately kids are humans, and humans love honesty. Now let's talk about Kentucky Fried Chicken. Ken writes, your Carl's Jr. Hardee's issue reminds me of the Canadian KFC situation. There are actually 2 kinds of KFC franchises in Canada. One sells your choice of chicken burger with fries or 2 drumstick with fries on Toonie Tuesday, and the other has the drumsticks also, or the other just has the drumsticks. Also, I think one offers Coke soft drinks and the other Pepsi. The ones that offered choice were always the messy ones, and they were also always the train wreck shit shows. I used to live in an apartment over one, and my roommates used to call that apartment the dank urine hole. Those were good times. Speaking of good times, I've been eating a lot of chickpeas to try and rekindle my male lactation superpower. I'm that guy. I hear chickpeas are supposed to work. So far, my shirts remain dry and lactose-free. I guess during my lactation phase, I was an infant eating exclusively 70s baby formula. So I guess I should be eating that. Ken, the true north, strong and free, I stand on guard for thee and your milky nipples. I'd like to give a big thank you to Sudafedrin for this show. I want to give a big shout out to J.J. Abrams. I want to give a big shout out to the Guinness Corporation. Big shout out to Padre SJ hanging out in the chat room. Big shout out to everybody who hung out on this Christmas weekend that has survived. But speaking of survival, whether or not you are making pedantic criticisms on the internet, whether or not you are writing a positive review of the Contender or negative review, I ask you, friends, as your pal Justin Robert Young, please don't die.
Do you like the way you're dressed up? Do you like how your hair gets cut? Do you like when your friends fuck up? Don't you think you have had enough? I'll need more advice to something.
As always, you can find this podcast on Stitcher, iTunes, or some other shit. Email me, justinrobertyoung@gmail.com. Twitter and Instagram at JustinRYoung. Buy The Contender at thecontender.us and hashtag join the conversation at diamondclub.reddit.com. A whole ton of live streaming this weekend, or this week rather. Follow twitch.tv/fakegamergirl and twitch.tv JuRYstone. Tons of fun stuff to come. See you later, guys.
If it were all left up to me, I would just let myself believe.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.